أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على رسول الله وعلى آل بيت رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Inshallah, in this night, we are going to talk a little bit about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran. We are supposed to continue with the verses of following the verse of the light, Allahu nur samawati wal ard. But since it's the occasion of the birth anniversary of the Prophet, so I said let's talk about something about the Prophet to have this honor, inshallah, tonight. Um, First, I want to start with this hadith that says, like everything was created from the light of Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, first, the hadith said that it was the light of Muhammad when Allah subhanahu wa taala intended to create the living beings. He first created the nur, which is the light of Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then when Allah created first of all the light of Muhammad, he said to that light, you are my chosen one and the trustee of my light and guidance. It is because of you that I am going to create the earth and the skies, lay down reward and punishment, and bring into being the garden and the fire. So I just like to start with that hadith that it was at the beginning just the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Um, so let's have a look how the Quran describes the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For sure, it's a huge topic and it needs a lot of time to cover all of the ayat that talks about the Prophet. But I have chosen a little bit of like some reflections and some insights. So it's not something like really deep. It's just some reflections on some of the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to describe his prophet in the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the prophet as the first of Muslims. And we know that the prophet is the was the end of the prophets. Like we call him Khatamul Anbiya, the seal of the prophets. So how come Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran call him first of Muslims while he is the seal of the prophets? He's the last prophet. So in these ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to the Prophet and he says, say, indeed, my prayer, my rites of sacrifice, my living and my dying are for Allah, Lord of the worlds. No partner has he. And this I have been commanded, and um, and I am the first among you of the Muslims. So this is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes his prophet in the Quran. Like he's the first of Muslims, although he is the seal of the prophets. He's the last one. So other prophets in the Quran are have been described by one of the Muslims. So let's have a look at one of those ayat that describes here Prophet Yunus alayhi salam. And if you turn away from my advice, then no payment have I asked of you. My reward is only from Allah, and have been commanded to be one of the Muslims, of of the Muslims. He's not he's not one of the Muslims. And if we follow all of the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the prophets as being as Muslims, he's just saying they are one of the Muslims, one of the Muslims. But when he talks about his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that his prophet is the first of Muslim, and that's why we know that the religion is one. Like the Islam as a religion, like is not something just as a religion that came with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it's something that all of the prophets has been Muslims from day one in their lives. So Adam alayhi salam was a Muslim, Ibrahim alayhi salam was a Muslim. So why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Rasulullah as the first to be a Muslim, Though Adam was before him, Noah was before him, all of those Anbiya, and he's the last one. So here we have a tradition from the Prophet where he sallallahu alaihi wasallam he says, "I was prophet when Adam was between soul and body." It means that when Adam's creation was in just its early stages, I was a prophet. And then when we go back to that hadith that I mentioned at the beginning, that at the beginning it was the light of Muhammad. So the first creature, the first light that was created is the light of Muhammad, even before Adam, even before Noah, even before all of those Anbiya prophets that came at the beginning. So this give us an indication why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the prophet is the first of Muslims, maybe in terms of creation. And the other part is that when he was created on Tawheed. There's no doubt of that. So since he was the first one to be created from the light, so he's the first one to have that Tawheed for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have that monotheism, to be Muslim. That's why the Quran says that the Prophet was the first of Muslimin, although there are many prophets that came before him. Another topic that I want to talk about, like tonight we are just going to have a collection of topics about the Prophet. The other topic is the salawat. There's one ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he says, "Indeed, Allah confers blessings upon the Prophet. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi, and his angels they make salawat on the Prophet. Oh, you have believed, ask blessings upon him and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him peace. يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us, is ordering us. It's an order. Ask the blessings upon Muhammad. Ask. So it's an order. And we notice that here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us an order to make a blessings, to make salawat for the Prophet. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing two types of the worlds, or he's referring to the upper world, which is the world of skies and heavens, where Allah and his angels they are making the salawat, and also he's referring to this material world, this lower dunya where we should do salawat on the Prophet. What's so amazing in this ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used his name Allah to say that he is doing salawat on the Prophet. And he says, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Indeed, Allah is making salawat on the Prophet. He didn't use any of his other names or attributes. He didn't say Rab, he didn't say Lord, he didn't say Rahman or like any other name or attribute, because the word Allah is the comprehensive name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you remember from the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, we said that Allah is the comprehensive name, which all of the other names, they are under this name. So when he says Allah is making salawat upon the Prophet, he means that Allah, with all of the other names and attributes, they are making salawat. It's not just the Lord or just the Rahman or one attribute or something like that. That one part, and the other part in this ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the term to describe the Prophet, and he said, indeed Allah confers blessings upon the Prophet, and he used the word Prophet, and he didn't use the proper name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't say Allah is like confers blessings upon Muhammad. Because when you use the proper name of someone, which means that it may indicate, like, let me say it the other way. When you use the like let's say like when you say prophet, when you say Rasulullah, when you say messenger, when you say Mr. or whatever, without indicating like the proper name, it means more respect to that prophet. It means that he's referring to his prophethood, to his high level. So he didn't say that Allah confers blessings upon the prophet. And if we upon Muhammad, or he didn't call him in his name, And this is an something in the Arabic language is called al-ijlalu fi nida, which means that here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing so much of respect and so much of something which is higher than respect. Maybe I don't have the English word for that, but something which is higher than respect, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really respect that prophet, you know? So that's why he didn't use his proper name. If we go to the other prophets in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to them, when he wants to talk to them, he does not use prophet, he does not use messenger, he uses their proper names. So it's only for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he wants to talk to him or he wants to refer something about him, he used the word prophet. This is only for the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi. When he wants to talk to Adam, when he wants to talk to Nuh, to Musa, to Isa, any of those prophets, he mentions their proper names, and this is to show the high status of the prophet. So another part of that in this ayah, that if you want to make a comparison between whatever we said at the beginning, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used his name, his comprehensive name, which is Allah. If you want to just make a comparison between this ayah that we mentioned earlier and how he's talking to Adam, how he's talking about Adam in Surah Al-Baqarah, and mention, and he's talking to the Prophet, mention when we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used his pronoun we, and he didn't say Allah. And there's a huge difference in that. And even at the beginning of the story, when he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the angels, he told the angels that he's going to have a khalifa, a representative on this earth. He used Rabbaka, Lord, and he didn't use Allah. So this gives a lot of high status, let's say, indications to the Prophet. Also, if we notice in the same ayah, Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, prostrate before Adam. He used his proper name, and he didn't say prophet, or he didn't say anything like that. So it's kind of a rule in the Quran. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to any of his prophets, he mentioned them by names, and when he talks to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to the Prophet, he mentioned him by saying prophet or rasul or messenger. There are some cases in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the prophet's name. He mentions his name. But if we look into these ayat, we will definitely see that right away after he mentions his name, he mentions either a prophet, or he mentions like the word prophet or the word rasul. So, for example, he says Muhammadun Rasulullah. So he mentioned Muhammad, but after that, right away, he mentions something about Rasulullah, which is either the prophet or the messenger. So even when he mentions him as a proper name, always it is followed in the Quran by his high status of either a messenger or a prophet. And this gives us an indication about this high status of the prophet. So here, just between quotes, we want to just a little bit talks about the salawat and what does salawat means, like especially for little kids, because they ask like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes salawat and what does it mean to make salawat on the prophet. So Alamat al-Tabai in his tafsir al-Mizan, he says that asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm just rephrasing, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make salawat on the prophet means that we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the status of the prophet. We are asking because there's no prophet that has this high status. There's no prophet that was tortured. That was no prophet that did what Rasulullah did. So that's why this prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he owes us so much. Like he like there's a lot of things that he did for this humanity, and we will never be able to give anything, in as a like back to the prophet for whatever he did. There's no prophet that had tolerated so much as he did. So that's why he said like no prophet was tortured as I did, and probably part of this torture because he was that noble person with all of these features living in that part of Arabia where Those people were so having so bad morals, and he has to fit in that society and do all of that job. So the benefits of asking, when we ask salawat on the Prophet, it means that we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the status of the Prophet and with more mercy. And what happens in return, this benefits will be back to us. So actually, when we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the status of the Prophet, what will happen is that much of the mercy and the peace and the blessings that we asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give the Prophet and increase his status, it's going to go back on us. That's why, like for example, Ayatollah Bahjat or all of these scholars, they say we have searched and searched a lot. Again, I'm just rephrasing, and we didn't find better than the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's why some scholars they say with one salawat, some of them they have their hajat. If you have any hajat, the best thing to do is the salawat. If you want to be closer to the Prophet, to get more of his light, the best thing is salawat. So the best dhikr that you can have, the best type of remembrance that you can have is the salawat ala Rasulillah. So here the benefits of the salawat, it doesn't mean that the Rasulullah needs our salawat. No, he does not need that. But the benefits come back to us when we ask that, oh Allah, increase the benefit, the status of the Prophet and his rank. Those benefits and prayers and blessings and mercy, they are going to go back to us. Also, we have to remember that the Prophet don't send me an amputated prayer, which is when the companions asked him, what is an amputated prayer? He said, when you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and you stop, we have to say after that, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Also, if you want to talk another part of the Prophet, another topic, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him in Surah Al-Qalam, and he says, and indeed you are of a great moral character. And I told you before that this ayah, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, is not translated well in the English language. It does not, this translation, it does not give the proper Arabic language. Here, here the here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying that indeed you are just of a great moral character, like he's describing him, okay Prophet, you are really you have really great morals. No, the Arabic language, the Arabic word that has been used in this ayah is that, and indeed you are upon the great morals, upon, which is above. And this really changed the meaning. It does not mean that the Prophet had a great moral character. No, it means that he was above the morals. He was above the great morals. That there's nothing we could say how to compare. Like how can we say he just have a great moral character? No, he was just above morals. So as if morals are like that down and he's on the top of the morals. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala um, um, when he started this ayah, he said indeed in the Arabic language, innaka. And this has a lot of emphasis. It has a lot of, in Arabic it's called ta'keed. It's a lot of emphasis. Indeed, there's no doubt, surely you are on the top of these great morals. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes his prophet as he is on the top of great morals, it does not mean that he's just referring to one like single moral of the prophet, like he used to smile, he used to be patient. No, he's referring to that character, he's referring to that human being which is full of light, that character which is on the top of these morals. So it's not just to any single or specific a moral thing in his character. Um, let's proceed with the. So let's talk a little bit about some of the manners of the prophets and a little bit. And I always say this in many of our gatherings that I always refer back to that book which is called Sunan al Nabi. which is the the way Rasulullah was living his life. And this book is available in English. And if you go to that book, you can see how Rasulullah was living from all aspects of in his life, how he used to treat people, how he used to eat, how he used to sleep, how his manners in social interaction. You will find a lot about his life. And the more you read in those hadith and in those type of books, the more you will get in love with such a prophet. The more you will say, "Oh my God, that cannot be a human being," you know. So let's a little bit talk about some of his manners in terms of social interaction. We know that the blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was always like cheerful, and he was so bright in public. And that's the opposite what we sometimes think about scholars of Islam or whatever. Like they should be always like kind of gloomy or like sad or like always they are serious. Rasulullah was not like that. Rasulullah was so cheerful and he was so bright in public, and his face always was shining, you know. So that was his morals, like his kind of manners in public. But when he was alone, he was so when he was in a private like how his house or something, he was in a so meditative expressions, you know. So between people he was cheerful and bright, but within himself he did a lot of tafakkur, a lot of silence, a lot of reflections. Also, Rasulullah, he never stared at anyone's face. Like, you know, when you stare at someone's face, it is a sign of disrespect sometimes. It is the opposite what Western societies teach us, that you have to be confident and you have to look into the eyes. No, this is not the akhlaq, not the manners of the Prophet. He didn't stare so much in the face because it's a sign of disrespect. The other people, the other end may get like shy or something. So he used most of the time to look down, and he was not like that kind of person that his head was almost like above, and and that really reflects that kind of humbleness that he used to have. And he was so shy. Like we have some hadith that describes the prophet as he was shy as the like as some females. They used this, like I don't know the exact translation, but you know um when a female, in the night of marriage, how she's shy. Rasulullah was shy, was and this reflects his humbleness, reflects his inner cleanliness, his inner beauty, and he was always careful to greet everyone first. Like sometimes we wait for others to greet us, like, okay, he should start with the salam. But Rasulullah, no, he was really, really, really careful that he should start the greeting first. And the greeting, like you may assume, yes, because he's Rasulullah, he has to greet these people. And no, but even to slaves and children and, those people that sometimes we give no attention to. And he used to start with the greetings, and it has been known that he used to shake hand, and he does not remove his hand from the other's hand until the second one removes his hand. And then later the people, they knew that Rasulullah does not remove hand when he's shaking, unless the other removes their hands. So they got to remove their hands, there, because he doesn't want anyone like to feel like, oh, Rasulullah doesn't like me, he removed his hand from my hand. Like I don't know what to say when we really read about these manners. And often he used to sit on his knees. Like he didn't sit like in a manner where like I'm a king, I should be on a like high place or whatever, like you see how kings sit these days, or like where you put your legs under your thighs. No, he would just on his knees, and he wouldn't stretch his legs in the presence of others. That's a sign of disrespect. So he used to be really careful for these kind of things. when I wanted to, like, when I want to talk about his manners and social interaction, there's a lot we can talk, a lot, but it's just a glimpse. So we just, try to go and search about these things. Whenever also he entered an assembly or a meeting or a gathering or whatever, he used to sit in the nearest vacant spot. Like some people like say, "Oh, I am, for example, I am this man. I am, I'm a teacher. Like they should respect me. I should be in the middle of the majlis." And no, he used to sit the first nearest spot, empty, like he's entering from the door, whatever, any place, the first place empty near to the door, he used to sit there. And he never allowed anyone to stand up for him. No one was allowed to stand up for Rasulullah. And that's why his companions at that time, they knew that Rasulullah hated that. So when he entered, they didn't use to stand up. And other thing that he taught his companions, that don't make a room for me. Like if I come and there's like, whatever, any empty place, I can sit in that place, that you should not make a room for me in, like, in the middle of the place or something. And that's why, some people, they used to come from far away and they didn't know the Rasulullah, like they have never seen him. And when they used to come in a majlis or something, they used to ask, and they will say, Ayyukum Muhammad, who is Muhammad? Who is, like, you are a group of people, tell me who is Muhammad. And this means that he was never been differentiated from his companions, or from the people at that time. Like he didn't differentiate himself, like I have to sit in that place with that throne, like I have to wear like this. Everything was so simple that whenever anyone knew would come to any gathering, they want to meet Prophet, they didn't know who is Muhammad. And you ask, which is Muhammad? Because he looks alike like you. He's not being distinguished from you in any sense. So also when he used to, like someone when used to enter a majlis or something, he used to remove his pillow from his underneath and give it to the other person, so he would use his pillow. And if the other person would say no, like I don't want your pillow, Rasulullah would insisted, no, you should take my pillow because you don't have a pillow. So there's a lot to talk about his attributes. We have a series in Arabic language. I know you don't like, but we are studying this in Arabic. So inshallah, hopefully one time we can do this for English for you. So while being addressed the Prophet, he didn't interrupt the speaker. He didn't he didn't bother the speakers. Like even they mentioned that Rasulullah, when he used to sit, he used to pray, for example, he's in a prayer or something, and someone like just sit beside him. So Rasulullah would know in his prayer that someone is waiting for me to finish my prayer. So Rasulullah would do his prayers fast, and that doesn't mean like he cuts his prayer or something, but if his intention is to elongate that prayer, he would just minimize it, so he don't make the other one waiting for him. And we really, when we look at the prophet's manner, we really realize how much the prophet stressed so much on not hurting the other side, not hurting the feelings of the other side. That's why all of his manners is just to, like everyone should. He made everyone feel that I am the most one that Rasulullah loved me. Like if you were there, like everyone would feel that, okay, it is me that Rasulullah loves me the most. Why? Because he used to make all people feel that I love you the most, I love you the most. And it's not like he's astaghfirullah, like he's pretending or something. No, that was the reality of Rasulullah. He loves all people. He used to cry for those people. And also, everyone will think that, as I said, think himself that he's the dearest person to the messenger of God, just because of the way that he used to treat them. And he didn't used to say anything that hurts them. So we know that, uh, as if Rasulullah is saying the way to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through perfecting the akhlaq with other people. And this is what the Quran said, that إنما بعثت that Rasulullah said, like إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق. I have been descended to make the akhlaq perfect, complete. So it's not about how much I pray. That's not about how much I do amal. It's how much I can, protect the other people's heart, other people's dignity, and that's the basic of what of like moving towards Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is how much you care for the other's dignity, how much you protect others' dignity. This is really important. That's why some scholars say if you find yourself you are not doing well in your ibadah, look at those hearts that you have broken. Maybe it's a word, just a word that you have said to a child, to your child or something. So basics, if you want to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our way to perfection is not to hurt other people. This is really basic. So also Rasulullah didn't speak unnecessarily. He spoke slowly and clearly and never used a bad language, never. He was a perfect model for modesty and shyness. He never got annoyed at anyone's behavior. Like even he has some servants at his house, even if they used to do something like and some other people at the house would like kind of say something like, why did you do that, why did you break this, why. Rasulullah didn't do that. He used to say to those people, leave him, whatever Allah has intended happen. So that's why he had like a servant. He's called Anas ibn Malik, and he served him for 10 years. And he said, I have never, Rasulullah had never told me why you did this, Anas. Because whatever had done, whatever had happened is just done. We cannot go back. This is how Rasulullah teaches us how to deal with others. Like it's happened, why I should go back and blame him and why you did that? Why just to stop it. So he didn't used to blame anyone. And he didn't also used to say any like kind of anything even to his servants. And this was so amazing among like among those people who they didn't have any manners at that time. And he never used to complain or object of anything. Whatever happened has happened. He didn't used to say but. And this is one of the things like Rasulullah have never said low, like if, not but, sorry, if, like if this happened it would be better. And he used to say like if is from the shaitan. We cannot say like if this happened it will be better, because whatever happened is destined from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can I say if this happened or if this not happened, it would be better? So he didn't. He said he, as they say that he didn't use the word if to complain about something or object or say like I wish it didn't happen or something like that. And he used also to frequently visit the sick, and he used to participate in funerals. He didn't allow anyone to speak against anyone. And even if, and this is really amazing, I don't know what to say. And even if someone would come to Rasulullah and would say to him, like Rasulullah, this man is doing a bad deed. Like someone had came to Rasulullah and he said, "Oh Rasulullah, I have seen someone who's doing zina. He's doing I don't know what zina. I forgot the word. He's doing he's a, like in like un like relation with like a sexual relation with a girl or something." So Rasulullah he says, "Why you told me? Like if I am in your place, I would take my coat, my abaya, and cover them. It's not like you should come and tell me." And even if someone would go to Rasulullah and he say like, I did this, he said, no, don't tell me your bad deeds. And this is give us like a great lesson for us. Like if we see something bad on like, or something that someone did something as a bad deed, we should not say. We should just keep it. If we could do something private, like kind of between us and him. It's not in public. Yeah, we could do that. But it's not that if someone is doing a bad deed, everyone should know, and if the prophet, we should tell him. No. So this is one of the akhlaqs of the prophet. Also of his akhlaq, that a group of Jews came to the blessed prophet and said, Assalamu alaikum. Assam in Arabic language means death. And those some people of the Jews, they used to come and they rephrase the Arabic words, and they say it in a way which means that they are like sending some curses upon the prophet. It's just by switching some of the Arabic words, some of the but they will sound the same, but they will mean different. For example, Assam, it means death upon you, but assalamu alaikum means peace upon you. So some of those group of Jews came to the Prophet and said, death be upon you. And then the Prophet said, wa alaikum, like he means wa alaikum assalam. He didn't say death upon you. And then his like one of his wives, he told him like she understood the meaning, and she said, why you said that? And he said that God does not like the use of harsh words. So even if someone use harsh words for us, like we should reply with whatever Rasulullah did. Also his forgiveness was something that I don't know how to describe it. So he didn't hold any grudge against anyone, never sought to take any revenge. That's because of his powerful spirit that he could do all of that forgiveness. And it's not just that he did forgiveness, it's not that he just did forgiveness, it's that he would do du'as and prayers for those. He would cry, he would stand in the middle of the night crying for those people that they are not following the path. It's not like he would complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, they are doing this and this and this to me. Like he would cry for those people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has descended many ayat in the Quran telling the Prophet, you are going to kill yourself from crying and being sad over those people. Stop doing that. And we can see here the level of forgiveness. So we know in the Battle of Uhud, despite whatever happened in with Hamza, which is Sayyid al-Shuhada, like what Hind did, which is Hind, the wife of Abi Sufyan, she took his liver and she ate that part. Despite that, Rasulullah, he was so sad, but he didn't. He had the opportunity to do, for example, the same in other battles, but he didn't do that. He didn't seek any revenge for that. And even when the day they, what's called in Arabic Fathu Makkah, they came back with victory, back to Mecca with victory after many years being in Medina. Some people, it was a victory for the Prophet, and some people, when they are entering Mecca, they used to say, this is the day where we want to take revenge and we want to do this with those people that they did this for us over all of this period. And then Rasulullah, they used to say this is the day of revenge, but Rasulullah said, no, this is the day of mercy. Al-yawmu yawmul marhama. And when he entered Mecca, all of those people who hurted them and fought with him for a long time, he said, "Idhabu fa'antum al-tulaqa." Just go. You are free. You can do whatever you want. And this was the real victory of the Prophet. So also about his cleanliness, the Prophet was so interested in cleanliness from his early childhood, and he was really unique in that part, in observing all of that part. Like, yeah, how he used to wash his hair, because when we studied the Prophet's histories or traditions or whatever, we study also like they say few traditions about how he looked. So we know that his hair used to be like fell up until his earlobes. So he used to wash his hair with some natural trees. It's called cedar. They use it these days to put it while they are washing those dead people. So he used to use those natural tree leaves, which is called cedar, to wash his hair. And he used to comb his hair so much, and he used to rub violet oil on his head. And he used to use a lot of perfumes. I don't know how to describe that, but some narration said that the Prophet used money on, he used to use money uh, buying his perfumes more than buying food and drink. So he'd spend more money buying perfumes than buying food and the drinks. He used to love perfumes so much. and his smell and his scent could be smelled really from a long, long distance. Also, like even his, I think his favorite smell was the misk. But even Rasulullah, without putting any smell, he used to have a smell. It's called the smell of Muhammad, which is looks like, which smells like the ward al Muhammadi, they call it in Bahrain, which is it's a kind of flower, a rose. It's a kind of rose. I forgot the name in English, but it's just a rose that comes in um, like red or pinkish. I forgot the name, but in Bahrain, I think those people in Bahrain right now they know it. Al-Ward al-Muhammadi. It just grows, So he used to smell the same. So that was the natural smell of Rasulullah, despite putting any smell. So even if he is not using any smell, people would know that Rasulullah used to pass, like he was here in this place just from that smell, which is naturally came from his body. Also, he used to clean his teeth a lot with a natural toothbrush, which is the miswak, several times a day, especially before sleeping, after waking up. He always used to wear like a white garment, and his garment was always clean. And there's a lot of things we could say about his cleanliness, but whenever he traveled, there was a kind of like a luggage or something for Rasulullah, and that luggage would always have an ivory comb, an eyeliner for the eyes, like a container, a pair of scissors, and mirror and a miswak. And if we look about these things, we may say like these are like more female things, but it is not the case because he used to really take care about these things and he really liked beauty. And he really, when he used to go out for his companions, he really used to dress nice. And he used to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who dress for their companions. Like if you have a guest or something, or you are going out for your friend or whatever, so always dress nice because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes that we dress nice for others. It's not for show off, no, but just for. So always his house always was clean, despite that it was a simple house, but it was clean. He always like emphasized taking the rubbish and the garbage outside house during the day and don't leave the garbage at night. So like his physical cleanliness was really in harmony with his spiritual purity, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. So also he ordered his followers not to relieve, like not to use to use public places like near graves, beside rivers or trees to urinate or like to why? Because he didn't want to pollute the water. Even he says when you want to wash yourself, it is better that you wash yourself outside the river, not inside, because he really cared about even the water, the trees, the animals, the plants, everything. So this is just a part of his morals. Hopefully, inshallah, one day we can discuss this more. Also, when we look about the Quran, how he describes Rasulullah, he says that the Rasulullah was true, complete servant. And he uses the word slave or servant. And this word slave or servant, which is in Arabic language called abd, is only used for the Prophet and none has never been used in Quran for other than the Prophet in the term that it was used like abdahu, the servant of Allah, that kind of abdahu, servant of Allah, servant of him. So for example, let's see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about other prophets. He says, for example, in the example of Nuh, the people of Nuh denied before them, and they denied our servant and said, um, I don't know what's that, a madman, and he was repelled. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes other prophets in the Quran and he says a servant, when he says servant about them, he should mention their proper names. It is always this case. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions any prophet, um, other than the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa and he used the word servant, always the proper noun of that prophet has to come. you know. But for the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, this is not the case. He used to mention him as a servant without mentioning his proper name. And this means that, he was a complete servant. There's no restrictions. He was that true, complete servant all the time. So even we have some descriptions in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes people like servants of Rahman, Ibadur Rahman, servants of the compassionate. But to the Prophet, he describes him as his servant, not the servant of Rahman, not the servant of Allah, the servant of him, his servant. And this is in the first ayah of Surah Al-Isra. Subhanallah asra bi'abdihi. Exalted is who he took his servant by night from Al-Masjid Al-Haram to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. And here Imam Khomeini says that this his servant Abdihi is only for the Prophet, because he's the only one who have reached that highest rank of servitude. If you want to say who is that man, which is the only man on earth, that have reached this high level of servitude where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala call him, you are my slave, is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. So also, I'm not going to talk about that part because we don't have so much time. We still have. Okay. So also, there's one ayah in the Quran. This is in Surah At-Tawbah, where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala describes His Prophet, and He says, and he's talking to us, and He says, "There has certainly come to you a messenger from among yourselves." Like it was really hard for Rasulullah to, like, grievous, like hard for him, whatever you have suffering, whatever you suffered, whatever you suffer, he is concerned over you and the believers, and he's kind and merciful. So this ayah is describing how Rasulullah, like, he really suffers for whatever we suffer for, whatever we, if we don't want to believe or something, he really cared for that. He's really concerned. But the point here is that the Quran describes him as kind and merciful. And as I told you earlier, that kind and merciful, they are two names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is Ra'ufun, kind, and Rahim, merciful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah has used two names of his own names, and he used it to describe the Prophet. And has never happened any place in the Quran to describe any of the prophets. So, and I think this is the only case where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used these two names to describe the Prophet. And why these two names exactly? Because he is kind and merciful. Like he have reached that level where his kindness and and mercifulness is like resembling, like he's part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercifulness and kindness. So, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give two names of his own to someone, which is something, like I don't know what to say. So this is only for the Prophet, and it's not given to anyone else. So that's why the Prophet said that Jibreel said to me, I looked at the earth from the east to the west, but I did not find anyone superior to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I looked at the earth from the east to the west, but we did not find any progeny superior to the progeny of Hashim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's why the Holy Quran confirms that, we have a lot of messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but some of them, there are degrees and ranks among them. Allah subhanahu wa, there's a preference in virtues among them. And that's what he says. Those messengers, we preferred some of them to others. To some of them Allah spoke. Others he raised to degrees of honor. And to Jesus, the son of Mary, we gave clear proofs and evidences and supported him with the Holy Spirit. So this is a clear evidence that among all of the prophets and the messengers of Allah, the last and the seal of the prophets, which is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, is the most preferred of all and the highest in rank in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't mean like we are making other prophets like in lower ranks, no, but in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is the most preferred of all, and there are reasons for that. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked, and he said, we have sent you, O Muhammad, not but as a mercy for the world. It's just not just a mercy for little group of people, but you are a mercy for the world. And to be honest, it's difficult to understand these meanings. Like, how can a prophet be a mercy to the all the worlds, like even to the world of plants, animals, like cosmos, heavens, hell. But he's a mercy for all of these things. That's why Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has elevated the name of the Prophet, so that we declare 5 times a day after the name of Allah during the adhan. When we say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, right after that, the adhan and the iqama, we say wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So that high elevation where the name of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, after that there's the name of the Prophet. And that why, like, even in tashahhud and taslim, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, right after the name of Allah. And that's why he said in the Quran, and have we not raised high your frame, yeah, your fame, and have we not raised high your fame, like we made you known and we elevated your name. So it is continuous from that time till this time. It will be continuous to the end, the day of the judgment. So yeah, I still have, like, I'm just going to end in 5 minutes. At the end, I'd like to share some of what other like non-Muslims say. What do they say? About Rasulullah, because sometimes people will say, okay, you are Muslims, you love your Prophet, that's why you say or whatever you say. But let's see how others, which maybe they are, all of them, they are not Muslims, how they view the Prophet. What did they write about the Prophet? So here's Michael Hart. He's an, I think he's an American professor, astronomy physicist, and he used to have he used to work in history also of science. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had a book where he like classified or arranged the top 100 people who were, yeah, most influential persons on Earth. So he made a book, and after he studied a lot of personalities, he collected 100 people who they had the most influence on Earth, and on the top of that list was the Prophet. So among all of those hundred people who have influenced the most on Earth, Rasulullah in history, Rasulullah was number one. This is according to I think he's American astronomy and physicist and historian. So he said, my choice of Muhammad to lead the list of the world's most influential persons, number one, may surprise some readers and may be questioned by others, but he was the only man in history who has supremely successful on both the religious and the secular level. Only man in history. And if you want to go more for the references, they are mentioned. Another, another, also another one, which is, let me read the name. Reverend Smith. I don't know all of those people. This is the first time I get this information. So also he's from Oxford. He said, without a standing army, without a bodyguard, without a palace, without a fixed revenue, if ever any man had the right to say that he ruled by a right divine, it was Muhammad. For all he had all the power without its instruments and without its support. Like he had, like without an army, without a bodyguard, without a palace, he was able to make a shift in the conscience of a humanity that will last forever just because of this man. And we have another, Gandhi, for example. I know, like, those who are from, those of you who are from that place. Gandhi, he was an Indian thinker. He was leader. He was a great man. No one doubts how much Gandhi was great. He said, I became more than ever convinced that it was not the sword that won a place for Islam in those days in the scheme of life. It was the rigid simplicity of the Prophet. You know, the simplicity of the Prophet, the regard of for his pledges, his intense devotion to his friends and followers, his fearlessness, his absolute trust in God, and his own mission, you know, his trust in God and his own mission. These and not the sword carried everything before them and surmounted every trouble. You know, this is Ghan. And also, I think this is the last one, if I'm not mistaken. Also, Washington Irving, he's also a well-known that I think he wrote the first American man of letters. He said that, you know, he describes how Rasulullah was moderate in his diet, how was, you know, he was not really distinguished in the way he was like dressed or something, you know. Neither he was, you know, his simplicity in a dress would be affected. Like, yeah, his simplicity in dress, he was simple in the way he dressed, but it was not affected that, you know, like he would look poor or like unclean or something like that. And he said in his private dealings, he was just. He treated friends and strangers, the rich and poor, the powerful and the weak, with equity, and was beloved by the common people for the affability with which he received them and listened to their complaints. And this is what the Quran says. The Quran says Rasulullah was an ear. He describes him as an ear because he used to listen so much for the complaints of the people. So last thing, that last quote, that the greatest success of Muhammad, which is Edward, I don't know, is the greatest British historian of his time. It says the greatest success of Muhammad's life was affected by moral force, by his morals. He was able to do that shift just by his morals without the stroke of a sword. And that's how was Muhammad, like a mercy for all the world. How that that's why Muhammad was so unique. He was able to do all of that just by his morals and not by the sword. And this is, you know, just for those people who have wrong assumptions concerning Islam and Muhammad. So, inshallah, we are going to end here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, you know, we be one of those who have shafa'ah of the Prophet on that day. And we take more of his morals because, you know, it's not like just we talk about whatever he did, whatever he said. We have to apply his morals in our daily lives. And this is what Imam Khomeini says, that everyone from the outside, from the like you know, can apply the morals of the Prophet. From the inside, no one can be the Prophet, but from the outside, everyone can mimic the Prophet's actions, and he can just be from outside looking like the Prophet. وصلى الله على رسول الله وعلى آل بيت رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد